Mr. Sanjay Kapoor, a foreign policy specialist and the founder and editor of Hard News magazine, is joining us. Thank you, Sanjay, for talking to me. How do you see the recent developments in Afghanistan? What impact is this going to have on India?
Thanks so much for inviting me, Prema. It's always wonderful to talk with you. And Afghanistan has actually left many foreign policy experts speechless. I mean, they were not expecting these kind of things happen. If you remember, in the early days, not too early days, maybe about a couple of weeks ago, there was a suggestion that it will take 90 days for Kabul to be overrun by Taliban when they had already won many districts there. There are 34 districts, and out of that, they had already won about 23 when there was a discussion that 90 days will be taken. And as a matter of 9 hours, they overran Kabul. And the big question that kind of intrigued people was that the Afghan National Defense Forces were 300,000 troops, which had been trained by United States of America at the expense of $88 billion over the last 20 years. What the hell happened to that? Why didn't they pick up? Why didn't they fight? Where did they all go? So the truth is that there weren't 300,000 troops. There were far less. We have been reading for the last many years about the ghost army that the Americans had created. So there was a certain alienation. You had commanders who may be wedded to the cause, but there were no soldiers who wanted to fight for President Ghani or the United States.
I just wanted to, ask you about US, because you were saying that US has spent 20 years fighting the Taliban. They've infused billions of dollars into the country. And after providing decades of military support to Afghanistan and after losing over 2,000 American soldiers to the war, the US has virtually now come back to a grinding halt. They are back to square one and they decided to call it quits. US President Joe Biden said that he does not regret his decision. He said that, he's blamed everybody. He's blamed the former US presidents, he's blamed the Taliban, he's blamed the Afghan government, he's blamed the Afghan defense forces, he's blamed everyone except himself. He also seemed to lack empathy for the humanitarian crisis unfolding in Afghanistan. How do you see that addressed by the US president?
I personally feel that Biden cannot be really faulted as much. I think everybody in Afghanistan or elsewhere at some stage wanted the Americans to go away from there. The Russians wanted, the Chinese wanted, the Pakistani wanted, because America has a very destabilizing, presence in wherever they go. They muscle their way around, and I was giving you an example of how they treat the locals. There may be a certain amount of desire to, do some state building or nation building, as they like to call. But the fact of the matter is that these societies never stand on their own feet. There is so much dependence on the investment and the funds that the Americans are bringing in. So Biden has gone away. I think what he has done, maybe what he can be faulted is the speed at which they decided to, leave Afghanistan. Now everybody is asking this question: how did the Taliban so speedily took over? They speedily took over fundamentally because they had the support of the Americans in terms of at least providing them legitimacy. They had the support of the Russians, who have conversed with them many times. The Talibani Biradar, who might be the presidential candidate, he had traveled to Wang Yi to meet the Chinese in Tianjin to meet at Foreign Minister Wang Yi. And Foreign Minister Wang Yi, in so many words, supported. So if you look at it, all the big powers were actually backing them. So who was backing Ghani? Ghani had nobody to back, and he was he was so disliked. I mean, there was nobody who was willing to stand for him. So that is the reason why he escaped. And rumors are that he took up 2 vehicles full of dollars with him, right or wrong, but there were only abuses being hurled at him.
And there was cash all over.
All over, yeah. So in a certain way, Ghani, nobody is really weeping. In fact, they're happy that the fellow has gone away.
Yeah. So you've also spoken about India. Now, what about India? Where does India really stand in all of this? Indian government has been saying that they have over 500 projects in Afghanistan, and they have been saying that they are a key player. People we have been talking to in the government, they say that we've got the Salma Dam done in Afghanistan, we've built the Afghan parliament, we have gifted them 600 buses, we've sent 75,000 tons of wheat to them, we are a major player. Is India really a key player in Afghanistan? Initially, India didn't even get a seat at Doha. Pakistan had to be convinced to get a seat for India. In the Troika meet, China, Russia, and Pakistan were there, and US was there. India was not there. the recent developments clearly shows that India is very irrelevant in the Afghan scheme of things. What do you think?
So we must recognize that India doesn't share border with Pakistan, with Afghanistan. So
Hmm.
that is, in a certain way, puts us at a great disadvantage, despite the fact that historically, when there was no Pakistan, we used to share border with Afghanistan, and we have so many memories linked with Afghanistan. Secondly, in Afghanistan, India enjoys enormous goodwill. There's so much love for Indian teleseries, soaps, and everybody who ever has anything to do in terms of ailment, they all prefer to fly to India because that's the language they speak, that's the love that they seek in India. India, because of its historical links, really matters. Is that it doesn't matter, but it doesn't have share a border with them. So time and again, there are many in the establishment and other countries have said that why are you shedding unnecessary tears for Afghanistan? They're no longer of interest to you. You've blown up some $3 billion. It could have been spent in Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh rather than in Afghanistan. Why are you blowing up so much money in that country which will not give you any kind of dividends? So I think that when we invested that kind of money, we had a certain kind of plan, which or policy which was driven by some promises that the Americans may have made, or a desire to go beyond, you can say, Afghanistan, and that began to take shape when we decided to invest in Chabahar port, which is based out of Iran. But our attempt was to sidestep Pakistan, because Pakistan has been blocking our way to Central Asia since 1947. And one of the things that we lost out in terms of our economy, in terms of our politics, was how we were kept out from Central Asia. But what really did was that Iran was handed out major sanctions by United States of America, and India is a certain ambivalence that drives our foreign policy. We don't want to antagonize the big powers. We don't want to do many things. So we didn't do enough in terms of taking Chabahar to the next level. So in 2016, we may have signed agreements on Chabahar. It was supposed to gather momentum in about 2-3 years. We were supposed to also construct a railway line from Chabahar to Zahedan, and subsequently it was to connect with Herat. And there were so many possibilities. We didn't do enough.
Yeah. Yeah, but China is trying to milk this entire situation in the region. As you said, 2 weeks ago, China hosted Taliban representatives for a meeting with their foreign minister, Wang Yi. And China seemed to have smelled the coffee and is completely milking the situation. Uh, do you really think that both Pakistan and China have been able to sideline India geopolitically, especially now?
It is a very, very challenging situation for India. But you must recognize that the greatest empowering or success that has happened because of the nature of the change that has taken place in Kabul is the kind of push that Pakistan has got. Pakistan has waited for 20 years. They thought that because of the challenge that India provides, they need strategic depth. They wanted a friendly power in Afghanistan, and they have got it now. And if the Afghans play to the script that the Pakistanis have really written for them, then Pakistan is on a damn good wicket. In fact, they will be the big power in controlling not just the border areas of China, because China has a problem with Uyghurs. It needs Pakistan's support all the time to stabilize the Muslim populated areas of China.
I want to know
Secondly,
what
China has
Pakistan's
invested
script
about
is. I want to know from you what
this.
Pakistan's script is and what
Oh
is
no,
Pakistan's
I'll come to that.
game plan going to be in the next few months.
Pakistan has benefited at the moment with the change in Afghanistan, which also means that it's managed to keep India away from Afghanistan. They were cribbing that we cannot have normal relationship with Afghanistan if India has a consulate in Kandahar and Jalalabad and all those. So they managed to get those closed down. So let us look. I mean, you have to look at life beyond the haze. The haze is what much is being driven, but there are plenty of things which are happening which will escape us. For instance, for the first time, the Saudi Arabians and the Iranians are talking with each other. Last time in 1979, when the change happened in Afghanistan, when the Communist Party came in, the Tudeh party took over, the communists took over Afghanistan. It was a different world. That is what triggered many things. But now you have the Afghans promoted by Iranians and the Saudis and the Qataris in a manner which they haven't done before. So the possibility of the radical Islam gathering momentum is far less than what it was in 79 or 96 or 2001 or 2010. That is when the Islamic State gathered momentum, because there is an attempt at rapprochement between the Iranians and Saudis, and it will have an impact also on Afghanistan, because you must recognize there are parts of Afghanistan which are under Shia influence. You have the Hazaras, a whole lot of them, which actually controlled by the Iranians. They did not resist the coming of Taliban. The Iranians had met the Talibanis many times over. In fact, you have the Biradar and other people who had traveled to Tehran and talked to them. So, there is a certain amount of diplomacy which was also at play. We are just looking at the militant aspect, the long beards, the black turbans, and people carrying Kalashnikov. That's not the only thing that has happened. It is a far different Taliban that we are seeing now. And I think Pakistan would be, if they are actually writing a script, they would ensure it doesn't blow up, because they want this arrangement to be there for keeps, so that they can ensure that they control the connectivity routes in Central Asia, which have come up in a big way. And they will also want to ensure that they are the guys who police the oil and gas supplies in that region. So, you asking me what the Pakistan wants? It wants to control that region, and also wants to ensure that their differences with India on the Kashmir issue get sorted out at equal terms.
Yeah. What about Biradar? Now, the Taliban leader who is touted to be the next big man in Afghanistan. Do you think US is also responsible for the emergence of this man? Because he was arrested by Pakistan in 2010 based on US intelligence. And in 2018, he was released by Pakistan again because of a request from the US. Then we saw last year the US Special Representative for Afghanistan, Zalmay. He signed a deal with Biradar in Doha, and now Biradar is at the helm of affairs. So why is US interested in this man?
Biradar actually was, he was arrested by the Pakistani. He was kept in jail for long, and that time he was not considered to be as powerful as he's made out to be. But he's been built up. I mean, he was relocated to Doha. All the conversation has happened there. In fact, people said you have a Doha Taliban and you have the other Taliban, which is on the ground with guns and all that. And people question whether Doha Taliban, led by Biradar, would have influence on these hotheads who are going around. So it is work in progress. A lot of work would have to be done even by those who have put this entire arrangement in place, whether it is the Pakistanis, whether it is the Russians, whether it is the Chinese or the Americans. There are many forces. You also cannot discount the presence of the Turks. Turks are very influential in Afghanistan. In fact, there are about 600 Turkish troops which are looking after the airport in Kabul. And there was a promise that they would probably have a greater role to play, which has not happened till now. But you don't know in the coming days, because there are certain papers which have been signed which are not really available to common people like us. And those papers will start showing up at a later stage. All the deals that have been done, how much money has to be transferred, because if a bankrupt government like Taliban cannot last, somebody has to put in money. Who will put in money? I mean, it's all right for robbers and gangsters to run their homes, but you can't run a country. So they have to be more responsible. So there are a lot of things that have been promised. A few $billion will come from somewhere. Pakistan is not in a position to do it. So it has to be Chinese or the Americans. Russians can't do it. So, it has to be interesting. What are the guarantees that have been given? Okay. The guarantees given by whom? By Qatar. Qatar has money. US has money. China has money. So some of them have to fork money for the transition which will take place. Okay. So we have to watch that. So don't jump to easy conclusions now, because if you do that, you're going to go wrong. And the story is still evolving, still acquiring shape. So Biradar, in a certain way, is key to that understanding, because he's interacted with Trump, he's interacting with the present administration, and it is moving forward. So let's see what happens.
Yeah. Now, while India may not be a key player in Afghanistan now, many sources I spoke to say that the unintended consequences of the Afghan tragedy can be this, that there will be a consolidation of Islamic forces in Afghanistan, and in Pakistan. And in turn, there will be a surge in polarization in India based on religion. And in the next general elections, there will be a call for a strong nationalist government in India. Uh, what do you think?
I think you have a fair point on this. Provides an opportunity to the Hindu nationalist forces to raise issues about the threat that's looming because of Taliban and because of Pakistan becoming stronger and this and that. So I see this as a period of great setback for India's foreign policy, a great setback for how we envision India as a secular republic, because there would be more people claiming time and again that this is a time for all good Hindus to come together. The threat is there. I feel very bad for the inclusive character of the society. I feel bad for many of the people who would be sidelined primarily because they would be seen as a threat to the character of India. So I personally feel that there is a big shadow which will cast on the 2024 or even 22 elections in UP. This is not because both Mr. Yogi and Mr. Modi are going to talk about national security because their track record domestically is so washed up. They've done so badly in terms of looking after people during COVID and other things. So national security is a refuge of every possible clever politician.
Yeah. What should be the way forward for India?
India decided much before this damn thing blew up. They had decided that they want to be a Hindu republic. They came out with this Citizen Amendment Act, which keeps out all the Muslims from their neighborhood. So it's not that only Hindus are suffering or Sikh community is suffering in Kabul. They have made it amply clear that these two communities are welcome and not so much as the Muslim, although they, as a roundabout manner, say that they will look after the Afghan partners. But the truth is that they have made it amply clear that there is support only for the persecuted non-Muslims who was there in the neighborhood. So I personally feel that this has been a big, major foreign policy setback when you decide to exclude people. So once you've chosen this path, either the government should make amends and say that we will allow everybody. Because if you want to undermine what Taliban is doing, you need to get a whole lot of those people who are there who helped you out. And only you can't just talk about Hindus and Sikhs who will come in, others don't come in. So if you want to bring about a polarization of one religion, then it's your doing. It's not that the Taliban is responsible. You are responsible for much you are doing. So that kind of consolidation, you are a contributory factor. That those choices have been made by India. So they can't blame it on Taliban. Taliban has come only now. But if you decide to do pretty much, have people being based on exclusion, on the religion, you exclude them, then that is a politics you will pursue. And this is what we will do.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Sanjay, for talking to me. Thanks a lot for all the wonderful insights.
Thank you. Thanks for talking with me.